what's the evidence? What's the evidence that the United States government, okay, Jonathan, all right, Jonathan, you're going to sit there and say that the U.S. government has something to do with the overthrow of this little tiny island nation of Haiti? This little tiny island nation of Haiti, why would the U.S. government be so worried about this? And what's the evidence? All right, let's hear, well, right off the top, the United States government has coup d'etat Haiti at least 8 times in the last 71 years. You want to sit there and try to tell me there's something, you know what, the position that it wasn't the U.S. government is actually the radical position. Why? The U.S. government in 1950 overthrew Haiti. And then in 1958, the U.S. government again overthrew Haiti. 1986, Ronald Reagan overthrew Baby Doc. In 1988, both in June and September. Wow, man, 1988, that was a big year right there. Mr. Papa Bush, CIA, Mr. CIA president there, he went ahead and overthrew Haiti 2 times in 1988. And then, or no, that was the end of Reagan, but then 1989, but that's, that was the vice president, right? Papa Bush, Reagan, that's basically the same. 1989, Haiti. 1991, well, look at this, Papa Bush and Aristide. Who's Aristide? Oh, my God, don't even ask me who the fuck Aristide is. Aristide is Haiti's first democratically elected president. He's their George Washington. And so George Washington got elected in Haiti. Haiti's George Washington was elected. And the U.S. government didn't like all the things that George Washington was saying he was going to do for his country. So he needed to be overthrown. He needed to be toppled. So there you go, another coup d'etat. And then you're going to have Clinton restore Aristide, only to have Baby Bush come in to kick Aristide right back out in 2004. So how many coup d'etats has the U.S. government done against Haiti in the last 71 years? 8. 1950, 1958, 1986, 1988, 1988, 1989, 1991, 2004. 8 times in the last 71 years. And you can add the one that just happened, number 9. Number 9 that just happened in 2021. And how grisly and how fucking gruesome. Jesus Christ, instead of winning hearts and minds, they're going to fucking shoot the goddamn eyeball out of the fucking president, the peaceful president that the U.S. government supported. The U.S. government supported up until now. So there's one piece of evidence right there, but, maybe this fucking State Department asshole, maybe he's got let's listen to what he's got to say.
Provide assistance, and we are prepared to provide any and all forms of appropriate assistance to our Haitian partners.
Can you speak to the DEA element of all of this? The ambassador also talked about the footage where they're identifying themselves as DEA agents, and he said that he doesn't believe in it.
Yeah, hey, government. They said they was the U.S. government. The DEA hasn't come out and said, in fact, the DEA says that the mastermind was ex-DEA. That's what they're saying now. Oh, yeah, okay. Did you just fire him yesterday? Did the DEA just fire him yesterday?
Can you say that that's not the case, that you have an assessment that those are not DEA officials? Can you sort of
listen to this answer?
Set the record straight on that?
Well, as you said, the Haitian ambassador himself has dismissed these allegations. These reports are absolutely false. The United States condemns this heinous act. These false reports are nothing more than that, just false reports.
So you couldn't just say that the DEA did not do it. He couldn't just say they had nothing to do with the DEA. The DEA didn't do shit. No, the DEA is not involved, and then have the head of the DEA come out and say, who is the head of the DEA? But he should come out and say, we had nothing to do with this. But that's not what we're hearing. They're saying false allegations are just that. Right? And then when he says something like that?
Allegations, these reports are absolutely false. The United States condemns this heinous act. These false reports are nothing more than that, just false reports.
So false reports are false reports. So we'll come back to a little bit more of that. James Lodge and Christian Sannon, you've got at least 3 Americans who have been arrested. That Christian Sannon was ex-DEA. The mastermind, Christian Sannon, is ex-DEA, is what the DEA says today because they fired him yesterday. Christian Sannon ran the CTU from South Florida. CTU, they say, is a Venezuelan security firm. There's nobody in America that's going to Venezuela to protect the Venezuelan people. All you have is CIA assets overthrowing Venezuela. So you have this Christian Shannon who's running this company to overthrow Venezuela, who's now implicated in this thing that overthrew Haiti. Big fucking shocker. Overthrow Venezuela, now overthrow Haiti. U.S. is on the side. The United States, well, there's three. Let's see. The names of all three Americans are Haitian Americans. Joseph Vincent, 55-year-old Joseph Vincent, 35-year-old James Salages, and mastermind Christian Emmanuel Shannon. They're from South Florida. All these guys are from South Florida. These guys from South Florida who's running this, you know, probably what, CTU is an American corporation. So all these men from South Florida running this American corporation who was part of the overthrow of Venezuela. Now, I don't know.
Do you think there's any truth to what the government,
seems fishy to me,
that these were mercenaries, that these were foreigners who were in there?
Well, Sean, we just don't have clear answers at this time. What we do know and what I've said is that Haitian authorities are investigating. We stand ready to offer assistance to that investigation, but obviously we're going to let that investigation play out, and of course the Haitian authorities are in the lead on that investigation.
Just one more thing on that. You, earlier this year, you were mentioning about the elections in Haiti, and you called for them to go ahead and schedule later this year. Is it still the view of the United States that elections in September are a good idea?
It is still the view of the United States.
Well, of course. Counter-revolutionary program. I heard that this might have been a preemptive counter-revolution. A preemptive counter-revolution just in case. So, of course.
That elections this year should proceed. We know that free and fair elections are the democratic path towards...
I want free, fair, and competitive elections there, Mr. State Department man, Mr. State Department guy, Okay, so you've had, two major occupations of Haiti back in 1915 to 35, 20-year occupation, and then you have a 10-year occupation that's going on right now with MINUSTA, the United Nations in the U.S., So, maybe that has to do with it. You had Jovenel Moïse, who went ahead and appointed Ariel Henry to be the prime minister, and then the 10-year occupation of MINUSTA, they've been trying to push MINUSTA out for last year or two, but somehow MINUSTA just keeps clinging on, so we're going to make sure MINUSTA stays. That's the United Nations and the United States. So the current occupation is happening today. The United States is currently occupying Haiti. Did the occupation help? In spite of our occupation, you still had the goddamn thing, so where was the police? Where was MINUSTA? Where was the United States and the United Nations at? Where the fuck was everybody at when Jovenel got shot up? His face represents the face of Haiti, and you shot the fuck out of that face. Just like JFK. Jesus Christ. And I don't hear hardly any of, I hear a couple of the main people, but in terms of main media, everybody's talking about Cuba right now, right? Oh no, they're going to invade Cuba. They've already overthrown Haiti. The United States is on the side of Claude Joseph, who's the old prime minister, the sixth prime minister that was appointed by Jovenel. But Jovenel had appointed Ariel Henry, and he, tweeted that Ariel Henry needs to get the government organized right away. So apparently the United States government did not want Ariel Henry to become the prime minister. The U.S. government did not want the occupation to end. So what, endless occupation? That's what Iraq, Afghanistan, endless occupation, isn't that the hegemony, isn't that the whole idea of empire? So Jovenel, he said Ariel Henry should be the prime minister, and he got assassinated because of that. You had the 10-year occupation of MINUSTA. They're holding that's another major reason for the assassination. 3 Americans from South Florida, they said they was DEA. I haven't heard the DEA said that they ain't DEA. And then don't even talk to me about Joe Biden's, paltry comments.
Comprehensive ceasefire. It needs to be supported by Afghanistan's neighbors, and we hope to see them act responsibly.
Yeah. Following up on Iran, you mentioned the talks in Vienna yesterday, the interrupted talks. Are you certain those talks are going to resume?
Okay, so we're talking about something else there. We need to get it back on track, right? So 11 of the arrested Colombians turned themselves in the Taiwanese embassy. Do you know to do that? You know, if you're into some shit, run to the fucking embassy, and then and then there was a shootout, but then they were able to jump them, and then so they ran to the Taiwan. Why did they run to the Taiwanese embassy? Just because it was there? It just happened to be there? Or was that the whole thing, right? It was a planned major military operation planned from the beginning to the end. Oh, and then at the end, if you get into trouble, just go to the Taiwan embassy. Just go to the Taiwanese embassy. That sounds like this is some extraordinarily smart stuff, and I'm supposed to pretend that a bunch of Colombian drug lords pulled this off? Maybe. I mean, you had, what's his fucking face in Mexico, built that, you know, those tunnels or whatever, and got him out of prison. But, look at all the evidence. The evidence just keeps on stacking up against the U.S. government. You know, it's consistent. It's consistent for the U.S. government to coup d'etat Haiti. It's not consistent to let Haiti, you know, leave. Frederick Douglass says, just leave Haiti alone. If Haiti wants to fail on its own, then it'll fail on its own accord. But when you have the United States with its, you know, knee on its neck, the United States has its knee on its neck, like George Floyd, well, no shit. No wonder Haiti's been having all the troubles that they've been having. It's disgusting that America has poor people and homelessness. There should be no poor people in the richest, you know, in a rich nation. There should be no poor people in a rich nation. There should be no poor people in a rich nation. And you got Haiti, the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, that's right next door to America. How the fuck is that even possible? Unless it's intentional. How the fuck is that possible unless it's intentional? Is Joe Biden working on making sure it sinks into the Caribbean? Is that what he's doing? Motherfucking racist, Dixiecrat, segregationist, KKK motherfucker. So, alright, Mr. State Department guy, you got something?
Violence and to countering gangs, and we provided $5 million.
Of course.
To strengthen the Haitian National Police's capacity to work with communities to resist gangs as well. And I would remiss if I didn't note our support to Haiti's pre-election activities. And USAID is providing more than $3 million to the consortium I mentioned before. And those activities for which these funds are earmarked include focusing on improving electoral administration, strengthening the competitiveness of political parties, educating voters on electoral processes, promoting electoral
processes.
Good morning.
Who the hell can listen to somebody that
Video
says
of the
processes?
assassination of the Haiti president.
Processes? I don't like that at all. Dixiecrat Joe Biden, he's only give 2 public comments on it. He was like, it's very worrisome. It's very worrisome that Joe hasn't said shit about this, and it's also worrisome that Joe had said that if Haiti sunk into the ocean, nobody would give a shit. The U.S. CIA had a psychological warfare campaign before they overthrew Arbenz in 1954, Guatemala. So this is what the CIA does. It sounds like Jovenel. A lot of people were calling Jovenel a dictator. He was ruled by decree, but he was the rightful president for another 8 months. And so you want a strong president that can be effective, a strong, competent president that's effective at getting his programs in, passed so that he can provide relief for his people. So the psychological warfare campaign, I think when people keep on saying that Jovenel was a dictator, I mean, he was our guy, what have you, but he's a dictator. So that means you're happy, Haiti? All those motherfuckers that were sitting there saying that Jovenel is a dictator, are you happy now that your president got assassinated? If not, then you don't know what the fuck a dictator is. A dictator means you don't want that motherfucker in office. So, and then 1964, I'm going to talk about 1964 Colombia, but maybe this video will help explain.
It's a DEA warning on the video from American.
So it looks like there's somebody that's on the ground. I don't know if they're dead. Somebody had blurted out like they weren't just, face down on the ground, but somebody had shot him, and you see gunmen that's walking around right outside of Jovenel's presidential mansion. Did you hear that? DEA operations! DEA operations! Everybody stand down! Everybody back up and stand down. Well, that's straight out of fucking Alabama right there. It's definitely foreigners. They're speaking English. They're speaking Spanish. America's done this shit 8 fucking times or 7 times before.
The American accent appears to be southern in nature, so it could be from Georgia or Mississippi, and appears to be an African American accent, meaning there's an elite force involved here. So we'll see. We initially see 3 armed men, 2 armed with SCAR assault rifles and an MP5 submachine gun. These are trained professionals. And later on, we'll see a 4th emerge from the white van that's facing the house. They're all very calm, collected, with 2 of them standing guard, and 2 others are walking into the house. This was highly organized and orchestrated. If you pay attention to the 2 guards, one of them is slightly shorter on the left, and one is slightly taller on the right. They're both looking down the south and north faces of the street with military precision.
It was the DEA. So, you know, there's one piece of evidence. The motherfuckers said they was DEA, right? And we haven't heard anybody from the U.S. government say, no, the DEA had nothing to do with this. You know it had something to do with them, damn. If anything, yeah, the U.S. should, the FBI, you're going to let the FBI go in there and what? Do a big-ass fucking cover-up and shit? We don't even know who the fuck killed our JFK, so I don't think you should allow any of our government officials into Haiti to investigate this shit. It'll be a massive cover. They're just going to make sure that they, God damn it. Fuck. So Colombia, 1964, this is LBJ. There's a Alliance for Progress CIA-backed program called Plan Lazo. This is where the United States government trained Colombian military troops to invade Colombia. So they invaded Colombian military troops to invade the peasant enclaves. They used a bomber aircraft with napalm in order to destroy people. Many of the armed inhabitants of the enclaves escaped, and 2 years later they're going to form FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, and FARC has become the oldest and largest revolutionary guerrilla movement in the Western Hemisphere. So, has the United States trained Colombians to be mercenaries? They've trained Colombians to be mercenaries in their own country. So, yes, there's a strong connection between Colombia and the United States government. Apparently there's a bunch of cocaine that was being dropped into the Clintons' backyard or some shit. I'm not for sure about all that, but I do know that a lot of USA goes into Colombia, and that, we have our relationship or what have you. So let's, I'm enjoying this leaked video analysis. Let's keep on watching it.
Also positioned the van facing the house, precisely to block off the streets of this zone.
So we've seen 2 go into the thing, and we see 2 on the outside, and then we got somebody walking down the street.
Face of 1 vehicle. As the assault teams leave, we can see that there's 4 vehicles. There's a lead white vehicle, a second white F-150, a third SUV that's white with a snorkel, and a 4th black SUV. The vehicles leave in proper military position, with the lead vehicle significantly ahead to scout, and with approximately 4 people per vehicle, looking at about 20 assailants. The vehicles move really slowly, as you can tell by the brake lights, as they are being careful not to alert neighbors to the sound of the engines. It is also confirmed that he caught the sound of more than 30 gunshots ringing out, with barking not the only other audio.
So there's a little bit of a breakdown of the video, that a little bit of evidence that we've seen.
And ensuring inclusive voter participation as well. So this is just one, these are just several metrics of our support for the Haitian people, and that will not waver in the wake of this.
Given the history of U.S. intervention in Haiti, which has been numerous times over the course of the last century and a half, is there any appetite in this administration for some kind of to intervene if the situation gets to be dire? This is a relatively close neighbor that has in the past seen massive outflows of people trying to escape. So
Good question.
the situation deteriorates, and I realize it's a hypothetical, but is there any appetite for a return?
To us, Matt,
Yeah.
Haiti is a partner, and that is how we will treat this relationship. It is how we have treated Haiti, is how we will going forward. We would echo what we have heard from the acting Prime Minister, Claude Joseph, in his calls for calm, his calls for the Haitian people to work.
So you just heard the State Department that said that we're on the side of Claude Joseph, the 6th Prime Minister, not the 7th Prime Minister. So that was a very important thing. You got the occupation, so the United States has to keep their occupation going. They have to. That's so important for Americans, to keep the empire going, to spend billions and trillions of dollars to occupy the whole fucking world when we have poor and homeless people right here. If you look at the budget and if you look at the policies of the U.S. government, and if that's a reflection of who the American people are, it's a democratic republic. The motherfuckers didn't get in unless they were voted on, or a bunch of assholes didn't fucking vote for, somebody else. So the U.S. State Department's on the fucking old Prime Minister, and then there's the occupation, and then we're asking him if there's any appetite to intervene. This was an intervention from South Florida, a corporation, a U.S. corporation, 3 Haitian Americans. I guess the only thing we don't have is a phone call, a recorded phone call of Joe Biden telling Christians, saying, hey, go ahead and do this thing. So what, until we have that smoking gun? Look at history. We've intervened 8 times in the last 71 years.
Work together to ensure peace.
They're a partner with the old motherfucker. They're a partner with the old Prime Minister. So this is the U.S. government picking and choosing sides. They're picking and choosing sides. He says he's not interested in a power struggle. That's because he's already taken power. Claude Joseph has taken power. Now maybe Ariel Henry doesn't think he's the Prime Minister. Maybe Ariel Henry just says, you know what? It is Claude Joseph. Claude Joseph went ahead and talked to Ariel Henry, and he got his permission, and nope, Ariel Henry says he's the Prime Minister. He says he's the Prime Minister. So the U.S. government is on the side of Claude Joseph and Minister, and probably the assassination, too. Come on, let's be fucking real.
To ensure democratic government, the United States has and will continue to stand by to provide assistance.
I want to mention these 2 things. You had Kissinger and Nixon, who overthrew Allende in 1973 in Chile. And Henry Kissinger is going to play dumb about it later on, and he's going to say, it sucks that we have to pretend that it wasn't a good thing because it was in our interest, even though it had happened. So he made it seem like, look, even though it was in our interest, we had nothing to do with it. And then later on, you're going to hear a recording where Kissinger is bragging to Nixon, sitting there saying that, no, people don't talk about us overthrowing a democratically elected communist nation. They don't talk about it, like trying to get credit for that, like he did something fucking good for somebody. And Nixon said that, oh, no, we didn't do that since our hand did not show in that. Meaning that the CIA was, like a ninja. They were fucking quiet and covert, got in, got out. Hardly anybody knew who was behind it or where the money and none of this shit. So Nixon didn't say, we didn't do that. Nixon says, our hand didn't show in that, meaning they fucking did it. Means that they fucking did it. So I expect the U.S. government to go along with the whole Kissinger, sort of talking points or what have you. But frankly, if you got nothing to do with the motherfucking thing, it's a fucking tragedy. It's the U.S. government or whatever, but I'm just a peasant out of motherfucking Colorado. So, this is sad, this is tragic, this is disgusting, this is bullshit. I hate that the U.S. government goes along with this shit. I hate that the U.S. media and the American people don't give a goddamn flying fuck. How many times do we ever why is it so important for America to, kill the president of Haiti? Why is that so fucking important? Why is it so important to occupy Haiti? Why is it so important to put the sanctions on, Syria and Venezuela and Iran? Why is it so important to hurt the entire motherfucking world? Why is that so goddamn important? Because it's hegemony, it's empire. It's the military-industrial complex has a name and a life of its own. The military-industrial complex is doing whatever the fuck it wants to do, and nobody can stop it. Not presidents, not Congress people, not the American people. Like I said, we don't even know what the fuck happened to our own goddamn president, and we're going to research and help investigate Haiti's presidential assassination. That's a bad call. That's a bad idea right there. And what a perfect storm, right? We went ahead, Claude Joseph, that was our guy. Ariel Henry is about to get in there. No, we're going to stop this shit. We're going to prop Claude Joseph up, and then we're going to put a bunch of money in the Claude Joseph pocket, right? We're going to basically, Jesus Christ. And it almost feels like the U.S. is just calling all the shots from start to finish.
The Haitian people.
So on Haiti, the ambassador told us that he has been in touch.
It's bullshit. It's disgusting. It's gross. I like Jovenel. I think he had 8 more months.
You just said that you.
We have no idea if he could have got the elections and the referendum going now.
Can you at least say perhaps the new packages?
So there's some of the State Department comments on Haiti.